Hello, welcome back to my channel. My name is Janai, and this is Karmic Fixer Tarot. And just a moment ago, I recorded a video on the U.S. military, what they might be feeling at this moment, where there is appearing to be escalation. Not appearing to be, there's escalation in the Iran war and talk of the proverbial boots on the ground, a ground war being waged that's calling upon our service members. I think as of the time of this recording, um, and it is March the 14th, by the way, there has been I think 22,000 Marines have been deployed to to Iran, and it's just it's not looking good, to say the least. But I was curious as to maybe the mood of service members, um, and that's what my previous reading was on. This reading, this this is based on something else I've been seeing. There's this discourse on social media. Black Americans, I love us, by the way. We are, there's, of course, we are doing our best to separate ourselves from just the foolery of this regime, and just reminding Iran, the way that online, social media spaces do, reminding them that our names are Bennett and we ain't in it. And I was just kind of wondering, this is just kind of a basic pool of, I think a lot of people are cottoning on to the Iran hostage crisis in the late 70s, where I think, see, embassy workers held hostage, and maybe a few days in the hostage crisis, the African American hostages and female hostages were released. And have to we can go online and find the particulars and more specificity about that event. But I think a lot of people have taken that as a sign that Iran is sympathetic to the plight of African Americans, and that they know that this isn't about us. Um, there's an uptick in social media posting and whatnot, where Black people seem to be exultant that we are exempt in the eyes of the Iranians when it comes to American culpability, when it comes to just what's happening in Iran, the rapid escalation. And I just kind of wanted to do a poll on that. Um, does Iran see Black Americans truly as exempt from this? Should we be taking this? And this might be slightly lighthearted, but then maybe not. A lot of my readings of late have been a little more political than I tend to like to be, but since politics touches everything, and since the geopolitical scene, um, as affected by the U.S., is going haywire, that stays top of my mind, which I wish I could go back to not caring about politics, even though you should care about politics by and large. I don't think one can go back to that, because it is important to care. Politics, again, touches everything. But anyway, this particular reading, I just want to know if Black Americans, if we should be exultant, if we should feel as though we are exempt from Iran's ire because of past um, military intervention by the U.S. Let me shuffle these a little bit more. I mean, again, the memes are, it's kind of a laugh to keep from crying sort of thing. As we African Americans here, I think there's this misconception by, white America, by people in general, that we enjoy suffering, or that we're just always fine. But I think our humor, our culture, our music, our food is, I think in a lot of ways, it's making something out of nothing, because, you know, that's a whole other thing. We have a way of persevering. We persevere through our creativity, our connectedness, our spirituality. Not all of us are, spiritual in the same way. Not all of us are churchy and whatnot. But I think a lot of us do have that connection to, to source, to spirit, or at the very least to each other, or also maybe we're connected to people who are a bit more spiritual or whatnot. And I think in a lot of ways, I really hope that doesn't pick up me touching the mic. My apologies. I think I'm in a little rain here, and that's probably going to make a big noise. Sorry about that. But anyway, we have this connectedness to, I think we have this groundedness. I don't know if people, I don't know if the mainstream culture, if white America recognizes how grounded we are, even if we come on these apps and, act a fool, or if we seem like we're laughing our way through it, or if we seem like we're unserious or whatnot. That's just kind of how we're staying grounded. That's how we're getting through these things that are beyond our control. A lot of times, I think what we learn, how we move, is that we can, there's a certain degree of control we have over things, a certain degree of input, like voting, that we may have. But at the end of the day, that doesn't always affect the change that we need. So we have to adapt. We have to be, to quote Obama, be the change that you want to see. I don't know if that's exactly how I said it. But anyway, we have to be the change agents. We have to save ourselves. This country has shown us time and time again that they're not coming for us. So we have to be there for ourselves and each other. And I wonder if the whole, um, if Black America appealing to Iran is, is it a laugh and you keep from crying? Do we have reason to believe that Iran is sympathetic to the plight of Black people here in America? Is this going to be a light-hearted reading? Is it going to be silly? Is it going to be serious? Spirit, let me know what you think. Let me go ahead and cut these. I don't think this will be as lengthy as my previous reading. Definitely check that out if you like. Okay, so here we go. So I'm going to do a simple 3-card spread. I do like those. They tend to be kind of an advice from the universe sort of thing. I do tend to ramble, so maybe something, a reading that maybe would have taken 5-10 minutes. Sometimes, I ramble and the videos go a little bit longer than that. I'm going to pull 3 cards. Spirit, give me some insight into Iran and its feelings about Black Americans, African Americans here in the U.S. First card, we have the 7 of Sticks. Let's see. This is a what to know. I don't know if this represents Iran or if this represents us. The 7 of Sticks is holding one's ground, is holding steady. Maybe this is something to know about both Iran and, the U.S., Black America. I guess that's something that we have in common. I can't say that I am the most knowledgeable about politics in Iran. I don't think most Americans are. But there's definitely that sense that, especially with this particular war, that they have no choice but to stand their ground. The line that's used to defend, I dare say, Israel. I don't see why that doesn't apply to Iran. Iran has the right to defend itself. And we think about the moves of this particular administration. There doesn't really seem to be any appetite for, there being. We can just think about the whole, the deal that, and I'm probably about to get over my skis, but there has been, you know, there has been progress as far as Iran abiding by, you know, the terms set by Obama's nuclear deal with them, where they don't continue to proliferate. What's the word I'm looking for? Enriching uranium. I don't know if they have been doing that still or if they stopped, but at the very least, I guess that deal was in place to curb Iran's, inclination toward developing nuclear arms. That might be something that I really need to look more into, and I don't necessarily want to get too into that because, again, I'm not as informed as I probably could be on that. But I guess the main takeaway is that once Trump was in office, that was done away with. And Trump hasn't seemed interested in being a good faith negotiator with Iran. And probably at the behest of Israel, um, they've now kicked a hornet's nest. And there's an underestimation of how Iran would defend itself and wage war against the US and Israel. Um, there's word of, the damage that's being done to US bases throughout the region. Um, Very aggressive, very sort of Iran not only defending itself, but wanting to, I dare say, really kind of isolate the US as far as making it as painful as possible for other nations in that region to play ball with the US. Um, I guess as far as Iran is concerned, if you're allowing American interference, if you're benefiting in any way from, I guess, the American military bases in your country, any dealings with America at all, you're a part of the problem. And that seems to be the situation. And, it's a very strong situation. It's a very kind of definitive sort of, military tactic that I think Iran is taking. And I think that maybe represents standing your ground and, really just kind of making a stand. I mean, however you feel about the regime that was in place and the regime that still seems to be in place by and large, um, that's, I think, where Iran is. And when you think about Black Americans, we also have to kind of hold our ground. I mean, we've always had to, as long as we've been in this country. Um, and, you know, there has to be a boundary that we set. We protect ourselves. We have had instances where we have really, if you think of maybe the civil rights era and things like that, we've tried to, I think to a degree we've tried, I don't want to use the word assimilation, but have tried to integrate ourselves into larger society, or I hate to say larger society, like we're part of society. Um, I guess that's a good way to put it. Things like the civil rights era, um, where we took collective action for our rights. Things like, Black people wanting to, for example, serve in the military as a show of solidarity, as a show of, I dare say, allegiance to the flag, thinking that the more we show our allegiance, the more we show our utility, the more we show our willingness to participate in the society, the more respect we get in return, the more, our rights are undeniable. And unfortunately, the US has a tendency to continue to deny us our rights um, through different means. So, Black Americans, we are resisting, we are holding our boundary. And one thing that comes to mind of late, and I dare say this has been especially since 2024, um, Kamala Harris losing to Donald Trump. I know as a Black woman, that was I was inconsolable for a very long time, but it just kind of reminded me, and I think it's reminded a lot of us, that we need to protect our peace. This is a point in time where we probably need to go a little more inward. We need to make sure that we're protecting our peace, we're protecting our loved ones, we're protecting ourselves physically, emotionally, spiritually, because despite our efforts in this country, there is that feeling that we've done all that we can do, and there's still a concerted effort to disenfranchise us, to treat us as second-class citizens. So I think the Seven of Sticks represents us really holding a boundary. If you go on social media, and I think I keep mentioning social media, maybe that's a sign that I'm a little too online, but there's lots of memes about, African Americans, Black people in the US. You know, we're not going to the protests, we're not going to the marches, we're not shopping at Target or any other businesses that don't see the value in DEI initiatives, um, who don't value our dollars, who don't value our contributions. We're at a place now where we really are holding a boundary as Black people. And that's probably going to continue. I think a lot of what's happened has really just kind of solidified some things for us. I mean, I think, again, I don't know if I said that in this interview, but no community is really a monolith. I mean, we are all individuals and we all have our own lived experiences. We come to different conclusions in a lot of different ways. So I think a lot of us, of course, understood the deep inequality and justice in this country when it comes to Black Americans. But I think a lot of us were also lulled into maybe a false sense of progress in some ways, or at least a false sense of security in that progress. Progress can be made, but there's also in this country the history of progress being rolled back, the history of backlash. And I definitely feel like since Obama's presidency, there has been a degree of major backlash against a Black man holding the highest office in the land. And I think part of that backlash has led us to Trump. And so sometimes we forget that for all of our progress, this country has a history and a habit of, you know, regressing or taking back that progress or finding a way to thwart and to stall that progress and to even take us back, or at least attempt to. So I think this card represents a boundary that not only Iran, it can be seen as a couple ways. Iran has, is holding firm, and it's horrific, but it's, you know, they know that they can't trust the U.S. and they know, of course, that they can't trust Israel at all. Um, so they have to hold this boundary, and I think that's what the Seven of Sticks represents. I thought this was going to be a lighthearted reading, but it's probably not going to be. So this is first card, what to know. The second card is new perspective. So let's see what this could be. Now the Ten of Sticks. Now this card tends to be, this card tends to represent maybe overwork, a card of labor, a card of, I dare say, very demanding physical labor. This representation in the Rider-Waite-Smith, by the way, sticks, of course, would represent wands. Seven of Sticks would be Seven of Wands in traditional tarot. And the Ten of Wands card, at least the most famous imagery of it being the Rider-Waite-Smith, there is a person carrying a bundle of sticks. It's kind of obscuring their vision. To me, it strikes me as a little comical because it's a ridiculous way of carrying such a large bundle of sticks, like right in front of you. At least I think it is. I could be wrong. And there's that depiction of just kind of overwork and overwork to the point of, I think, it obscuring your vision. You're not being able to see your way through the burden or the physical labor or the weight that's, that you're having to carry. But this card is, I think this is actually a really beautiful card. By the way, this is the Hoodoo deck by Caitlin Foisey, and the book is by Tiana Lee McQuiller. She's a wonderful insight into tarot, into divination, into hoodoo here in the U.S. So shout outs to her, or shout outs to them rather, on this deck. But I think this is a very beautiful representation of that work. This is obviously a lot of labor. Those stakes on the back, and we have a figure of, this looks like an elderly woman with white hair, and she's wearing a long white robe, and she's going about her business, going about her labor. And while the imagery of this card depicts somebody who's working hard, but this person is also reaching for fruit or flower. I can't quite tell if it's fruit or flowers, but she's reaching towards something beautiful through all this effort. So it makes me think, and I'm not sure if this is a new perspective, but one way to think of this card as a new perspective is that I think this just shows an appreciation for hard work, appreciation for, while we have to do hard things, there can be beauty at the end of it. Something beautiful here. Maybe we get on the internet and we post a funny meme. We express our disappointment in this country, our anger, our pain. We take something that's hard. We take something that's laborious, painful. We take something that's difficult, that's a burden, and that propels us towards something beautiful. While it's not something that we enjoy, it's not like a celebration of struggle. It's a celebration in spite of struggle. We aren't, you know, the kind of, and this, I'm kind of all over the place here. We see this image of this woman. This woman seems to be elderly. You look at her hair. It's either white hair or maybe just like a white rag. But I wonder if this is an elderly woman, somebody who, the depiction of someone who's had to work hard their entire life, um, and they still have the will, maybe not the physical strength that they used to, but the will and the habit to go forward because it's just work that has to be done. Maybe nobody else is going to do it. If we have an elderly woman out here, not somebody out here doing it for her, she's probably, traditionally been somebody who has had to do the work because who else is going to do it? And, you know, it's not we don't worship struggle. And I think maybe, white America has this view of us that maybe we love to struggle. You know, you think about, for example, slave films. You think about how highly acclaimed, depictions of us enslaved and whatnot, how much acclaim that gets. And I think there's a level of this fetishization of the Black American experience, particularly the hardships of that experience, to the point at which maybe the wider culture thinks that we enjoy it. And we don't. We don't. We just make the most of it. We find a way to strive for something beautiful in spite of the hardship we have to endure. And maybe that's what this card, I don't know if this is a new perspective, or at least not for me. Let me know what you think in the comments if this is a new perspective for you. But I think at the very least it's a reminder that we use things like the internet like anybody else. We are quick-witted. We come up with things that become culture, whether they're super funny, whether they're super beautiful, whether they're, you know, whether it's just really resourceful, something that it wouldn't have occurred to anybody um, otherwise. It makes me think of a YouTuber. I probably, not YouTuber, Instagram post. I probably shouldn't mention her right now because I can't remember her name or whatnot. And I definitely want to leave some information about her in the description of this video. But she, throughout Black History Month, she's been posting recipes of her making what she calls lost recipes, recipes that come from taking the simplest ingredients, even the maybe at the time subprime ingredients, the leftover things that we had access to, um, when pickings were slim. We take those items and we turn them into soul food. We turn them into a beautiful dessert. We turn them into a refreshing drink or whatnot. We take, it's like making $1 out of 10 cents. I think that's kind of what has been, I won't say kind of, that's been the experience of us in the US. and we just make the most of it. Not because we can't do better, not because we don't want to, not because we love to struggle, but because we're resourceful, because we take what we have and we multiply it and we turn it into something beautiful. And this lady is taking her efforts and she's reaching towards something beautiful, and she's used to doing that, and she'll probably continue to do that. And hopefully there are people, I mean, I know this is it's the physical depiction, but hopefully this is a physical depiction of someone who has a community around her, somebody who continues to do what she does out of love, not necessarily out of a sense of burden or obligation. Sometimes we take the hard work and we do it not just because maybe no one else will do it, but because we love the people that we're doing it for. And so our resourcefulness, our creativity, I think it really does come from a place of love. Even if it doesn't feel like love in the moment, even if it's a, maybe if it's, even if it's something like sarcasm, or if it's coming from a place of rage or anger, we express ourselves because we have to release that. And sometimes that release will help us to, I mean, I know speaking from personal experience, that release will lighten our load a bit. It will help us to continue to carry forward. And even from that release can come something unexpected. It can come something that goes viral, or a song that reaches so many people, or um, a beautiful, beautiful piece of art, or a beautiful meal, or a beautiful arrangement that's waiting for us at the end of our struggle, at the end of our labor, rather. So I think this is what that represents. Card number 2, new perspective. And the third card in these spreads tends to be an action step, maybe something practical that one can do that ties this together. So let's see what card number 3 is. We've got we've got more sticks. I think it's interesting that this entire spread was sticks. And sticks, aka wands, as they're represented in other tarot, um, the eights of any suit, particularly of the wands, or in this case, sticks suit, the eight is change, the eight is momentum. Um, when I think of maybe, when I think of kind of numerology, or the numeracy of cartomancy, um, I like to think of the eights as, force multiplied of 4. And when you think of fours are stability, or in the shadow side, fours are stagnation, being stuck. But when you multiply that, you get change. It's a time to not be stuck. It's a time to not be stagnant. It's a time to move. It's a time to make change. And the Eight of Wands in Standard Tarot, which tends to represent fast change, tends to represent momentum, things happening fast, or keeping up momentum, not losing track. And I think maybe as an action step, this seems pretty cut and dry, at least to me. Keep the momentum going. We don't necessarily even have to. I'm not necessarily going to think of this in terms of, I know the query was what to make of Iran's, you know, do they have any feeling one way or the other toward, Black Americans, the plight of African Americans here in the U.S. And I think this reading has kind of veered away a little bit from that, because maybe that's beside the point. Maybe that angle of it was just something for the internet. It's just kind of like a fun diversion. There's so many videos of people, you know, making clear to Iran, it's like, hey, he's not our guy. That is not us. That is not the Black delegation of the United States of America. That is all that guy. And I mean, some of us are having the feeling that Iran gets that. Whether they do, whether they don't, at this point, they obviously have bigger fish to fry. They they are sending a message, and they are dealing as much damage as they can to the U.S. and Iran, for this foolhardy war. And at this point, maybe, it's a little beside the point to think about, social media shenanigans and whatnot. Maybe the main thing, maybe the main takeaway from this reading is for us to keep up our momentum. Maybe using things like social media and the internet is a way to resist. It's a way to not take, I don't want to say not take it seriously. I think it's a way to highlight just the unseriousness of the people who are running the show. It's a depraved unseriousness with with serious consequences. But I think it is important for us to keep up the momentum, keep up what we're doing by highlighting just how disrespectful this regime is being and how undeserving of any respect they are. It's just when you look at this particular image, it's wands or sticks going in a going in a certain direction, and they look very explosive, just kind of being propelled by something. It's actually rather violent looking, and I'm not calling for violence, but there is strong momentum behind what we're doing, even if it doesn't feel like it. I dare say there's strong momentum behind us continuing to use social media to express our outrage, to express our concern, to use things like humor to get our point across. Um, Social media is also a great place where so many wonderful, influencers, creators, and whatnot are giving us history. They are putting out information that isn't being taught in our schools. There's so many content creators who are adept at history, social science, political science, who are creating content that's digestible, engaging, and informative. And we're learning so many things, and we're putting out so much information, so much news that we can use. And I think this card represents continuing to do that. Continuing to glom on to social media trends that propel the truth forward, that propel our opinions, our views, our dissent forward. I think that's what this card represents here. And I think it's very fascinating that all of the cards in this pool are sticks cards. Sticks slash wands represent passion, represent creativity, expressiveness, and just putting your truth, and I always like to say your truth, putting the truth out there, putting your perspective out there because it's valuable, because it's needed, even if it's just to make us laugh for a moment, even if it's laughter to keep from crying, and sometimes crying, sometimes things make you cry, and it's okay for that. But sometimes in times like these, joy is defiance. So this regime does not want Black people to thrive, doesn't want Black people to be happy, doesn't really want anyone to be happy, but least of all us. And I think that our resistance to that is continuing to be unserious on the internet. I think that's what we need to do. And I think I'm going to pull one more card. I like to do a bottom of the deck card. Sometimes that gives an overall energy of the reading, or maybe an underlying energy of um, my energy behind the query. Maybe it's something that ties things together, something that we need to know. So here's the bottom of the deck card. Another sticks. Now, when I get cards of the same suit, there's that part of me that's like, did I shuffle these right? But I do also, and I might do another video on this, as far as tarot goes, I'm at a place where I think it's really good to trust the cards. There's this thing that I've started thinking that the cards aren't wrong. I I don't think the cards lie, I dare say. So if I get a reading and it's all maybe um one suit, there's that part of me that's like, did I shuffle these right? Did I mess up? But I also have to remember that I think it's worthwhile to take the cards as they come, take the reading as it comes, and just kind of be open to whatever comes out. So we have a 4 of sticks. So this has been a complete, you know, this entire reading has been sticks. It's been very full of passion, very full of expressiveness. Um, and I think that's an underlying sentiment. I think that's what spirit is communicating to us. And the 4 of sticks is a beautiful card. Um, I think it represents intimacy. It represents, you know, like I mentioned before. In fact, mentioning it in relation to the 8 of sticks, how 8 of sticks so is the force multiplied. I think this card representing togetherness, stability, um, representing, the passion that we have, the love that we have, the creativity that we have. We can use this to bring ourselves together, use this to be community, use this to be family, friends, lovers. These two look like a very happy couple enjoying their time together. And I think that this underlying energy in this spread, I think it's very important in these times. Finding ways to come together with your loved ones, you know, whether it be your, birth family or chosen family, have the will to choose family, go out there and take your creativity, take what you're passionate about, and build on it. You can build something stable with it, even in these times that seem very unstable. We don't have to be unsteady because the world around us is. Um, and I think Black people, we have a knack of being steady when this country is unstable, when this country wants to destabilize us. We have a way of standing true. It isn't easy. And, there are things that rattle us like anybody else. But we have a way of persevering, which shouldn't be lost on us. It doesn't mean that we love to struggle. It doesn't mean that we will always struggle, but we are resourceful and creative, and we have passion, and we have love. And I think that that's what this card can represent here. To not lose sight of that, because it can be very stabilizing when things are unstable. So I thought this was a really beautiful reading. There were some times at the start of the reading where I thought things would get a little heavy. Maybe they did for a little bit, but at the end, it's about community. It's about us. It's about being together, standing strong, and you know, not letting the instability of this current world rock us. If it does rock us a little bit, we can steady ourselves again. And yeah, this was a really beautiful reading that I'm very grateful to Spirit for giving me. And I hope this reading resonated with you as well. Let me know what you think in the comments. If you get a different interpretation from the cards, I'd love to hear it. I'm still new to tarot. I'm still learning, and I'll continue to learn because this is such a started out as a hobby, and I think it still is a hobby. But I've gotten a lot of insight from the cards, and it's just been a pleasure to work with, and it's been a pleasure speaking to you. If you made it to the end of this video, thank you so much for watching. If this is your sort of thing, if you're into tarot, divination, um, you know, the mystic stuff, spiritual technology, please give me a thumbs up. I guess it helps the algorithm, maybe. And if this is something that you're interested in, if you enjoy these videos, please consider subscribing. And until next time, I hope to see you again.